Good afternoon, everyone. Calling the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting of November 21st, 2024 to order. Just as a news update, Ralph has advised that he is stepping down as chair. So with that being said, we now have a vacancy for chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, which will be the first item for business. So if everyone remembers the proper process, I'll be asking who would like to stand as chair. You can either nominate somebody or you can raise your hand and say, I'd like to be sitting as chair, and someone else will need to second that as well. So, and once that person is appointed, they'll be sitting right here, and we'll get them settled. So, does anyone like to nominate someone else for chair? Karen?
I would like to
Ike?
nominate. Am I on?
You're on? Yep.
Okay. I would like to nominate Barb.
Perfect. Barbara, do you accept?
Yes, I accept. Thank you so much. I'm honored. And
Perfect.
I'm sad, Ralph, that you're stepping down as chair, but I'm really happy with what you've been able to do for us. And your leadership and guidance has been really invaluable. Thank you.
And do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Varney? Perfect. So the motion would be that Barbara Moody-Stellar be appointed as the chair for the Accessibility Advisory Committee for the remainder of the 2022 to 2026 council term. All in favor? Carried. Barbara, please take a seat.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone. We'd like to move on to the next agenda item, please, which is the adoption of the agenda. The recommendation reads as follows, that the agenda of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting dated November 21st, 2024 be approved as circulated or amended. Do I have a mover for that recommendation, please? Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Sandra. And all in favor? Thank you. All right, we're on to the next one, disclosure of pecuniary interests. I do not like that word, but okay. Anyone? All right, hearing none, we're ready to move on to approval of the minutes. So the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee of October the 17th. Recommendation is that the minutes of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting dated October 17th, 2024 be approved as circulated. May I have a mover, please? Karen, a seconder? Judy, all in favor? Thank you. Great. All right, we're on to our deputations. So we have our first deputation by Lyle, please tell me if I'm saying it wrong, Lyle Bergstrom.
You said it correct.
All right. Manager of Operations, and Andrew Stacy, Director of Infrastructure Services. And it's regarding the town operations and upcoming accessibility capital projects. Take it away.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'll likely do most of the speaking for today. We didn't come prepared with any specifics regarding town operations, so my understanding is that wasn't an item on today's agenda. It was really to focus on the questions that were provided through the committee to Infrastructure Services. So happy to talk about town operations at another meeting if there's one available. I'm just not prepared to talk about that today. But regarding the questions that were provided to me, if you're fine with it, Madam Chair, I'll just repeat the question and then provide you with the response that I have to the question, if that's acceptable. So the first question, Madam Chair, was the status of the chair handrails at the Centennial Center, and where are we right now? I will advise at the July 16th Committee of Whole meeting, administration was directed to look at this particular item. although a time frame was not attached to it, it was into a future budget. I would have loved to have done it this year, but unfortunately, we had a lot of other commitments that council had directed me to do as well, so I wasn't able to do that for this particular committee. But I was able to speak with the chief building official. There was a reference to the building not meeting code. I did have an opportunity to meet with the CBO, and he confirmed that the Centennial Center met the code of the day that it was built. So that particular facility was constructed in the 70s. But moving forward, I will commit to this committee that we will look at that as part of a 2025 work plan and bring forward any recommendations that fall out of that. Obviously, any money that's tied to that, that will be a capital budget discussion and really up to council to give me approval to proceed. So another question we have was, and thank you for the checklist that you provided.
Actually, let me just pause you for 2 secs. Any questions or follow-up comments from the committee regarding the railings? All right, hearing none. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a few other questions that really are probably Director Halford's territory. Not all these questions were pertaining to my particular department. I did provide some comment on those, but I think they would be best served by Director Halford. So if you're fine, I'll skip those and move on. But for the purpose of the committee, really the question was, what checks and balances do we use as departments to confirm that AODA aspects are in parks and buildings and stuff like that? I can speak to parks. Director Halford will speak to buildings. We don't have a checklist per se for when we design our parks, but all of our parks are designed by a playground practitioner who does have AODA experience. We do not design them in-house. And so on that basis, the designs that we put out to the public in our minds are compliant. I apologize, back in 2021, we did do a playground expansion at Kinsman Park. That should have come back to this committee to comment on. Unfortunately, it didn't. Won't happen again. The plan moving forward, any park design that we do, we would again engage our third-party practitioners to do that design. I would bring it back here for review and comment by the committee and any changes, and then go forward from there. So there will be opportunities for this group to comment on park stuff.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
We do have a checklist, though, for maintenance of our parks and playground equipment. So as we're doing our checks to make sure everything works good and safe, there are references to AODA Act to make sure that we're still compliant. So from a maintenance aspect, yes. From a capital construction aspect, we don't have a checklist per se.
Can I ask if that's something to do in the future, an issue, or is it fine the way it is?
I would think it's fine the way it is. Again, as we get more familiar with each other and start working together on projects, if it becomes a thing that we need to, create checklists for ourselves, happy to do that. But at this point in time, I'm comfortable with the designs that we have, again, by a third-party practitioner.
Okay.
There was a reference, another question that I received was, members of the AAC committee remember working with my team and going out in the field and looking at things. And I do remember those days. Those particular days, we were primarily doing facility upgrades, and a lot of it was push buttons and where those push buttons go and accessible doors. And I think that's great. And if there's an opportunity that we can make arrangements for stuff like that through your staff liaison, we'll continue to do that. But any decisions that have to be made need to be made in this room and can't be made out in the field. So
Right.
I think that's the only caution I would give, but I don't see any reason why, if opportunities allow, we get together out in the field, look at what we're doing, and then come back here to talk about it.
Let me just ask the committee for some input. What do you think about the idea of site visits when and if it's reasonable to do so? Is that a good idea? There you go. Go ahead, Ralph.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry. Turn it on. There you go. You're on.
I'm on? Oh, good. We've done site visits before for applications. Not all of them are required, but it's certainly handy to have them pass through the committee. And we can make a decision whether there's an accessible component to it.
Great.
And it was something that we did in the past.
Thank you, Ralph. Anyone else? Any?
Thank you, through you. So a site visit, we wouldn't necessarily want to go on or need to go on a site visit to the Centennial Center because obviously you already have that in hand. Is that correct?
I'll leave it up, through you, Madam Chair, I'll leave it up to the will of this committee. I'm glad you're comfortable that it's in good hands, but certainly if there's a project at the Centennial Center that the committee is interested in seeing, I don't mind facilitating that and working with the committee.
Okay, because the other question I'm going to ask then is, which would be the next area that handrails are being requested, is at Gull Lake Park for along the stairs. Is that something that the town would do, or is that something to go back to Rotary and ask them?
Through you, Madam Chair, at this stage, it would be a town initiative,
Town
not a
initiative, okay.
Rotary initiative.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
I was always also asked about some of the projects that we have coming up in the future. One of them is we have, you may have seen, we 2 Committee of the Whole meetings ago, we talked about the potential for a new outdoor recreation hub down at the wharf, which will actually look at repurposing the wharf sports field to, and our initial thoughts are maybe an expanded splash pad, some pickleball courts, some walking trails, outdoor fitness equipment, that kind of thing. But it still will be subject, if council approves it at the capital budget stage, excuse me, it'll still be a function of, once we get the approval to do this, part of the scope will be to go out to the public anyway, do some community outreach to see what the community would like. And again, we can bring all that information back here to the committee, and the committee can provide comment. But I do think once we receive the feedback from the community, it would probably be easiest that Infrastructure Services proceeds with a detailed design, and then now you have something to review and approve, rather than just talking about hypotheticals. I just think that'll speed up the process a bit. So again, if we get approval by council, we'll do the design, we'll reach out to the community, we'll package all that up for you, and then we'll come here and discuss it and get some feedback from the committee.
All right, let me stop there and just ask if the committee has any thoughts or feedback so far. We're good? Okay. So it sounds very promising. Thank you, Andrew, for how you've stated what you're stating. It sounds like you're very much aware of what we can provide, what our terms of reference are, and we thank you for that. We look forward to working with you in 2025 on all of these wonderful things.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want me to take it a step farther and talk about some of the projects we may be doing in addition to that?
Please, it's like presents for us.
Christmas.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Some other projects that are coming down the pipes. We actually do have approval to do a redo of the Gull Lake Park playground equipment. And that was actually a project this year, unfortunately low in resources, so it got paused for a bit, but my intention is to bring it back in January to life. And again, we'll do that. We'll do the design, bring it back here. We're also doing a Gull Lake Barge rehabilitation, so a rehab of the stage.
Nice.
It's still going to have pretty much the same look and feel as that, but I think it's important that I bring it back here again to get buy-in from the group. Another project that is on the capital docket this year, if approved, is also to build a AODA ramp at Muskoka Beach Park, which will take folks from the parking lot down to the beach area.
Beautiful.
Last year, or this year, we purchased Moby mats for the beach as well. Unfortunately, they're still on back order, so we didn't receive them in time for the summer season. But the 2 of them will work together once in play. And then again, I mentioned the outdoor park design at the wharf. That will be a pretty big project for us.
For those perhaps watching who don't know what a Moby mat is, could you describe it, please?
Certainly. What a Moby mat is, it's essentially a mat that rolls up every year. We roll it up, and then every year we put it down, and it provides a harder surface, if you will, for people to get access to things that don't have necessarily an even surface. So our thinking was this would help people get into the water to enjoy some of our parks, and we're going to be putting them in at Franklin Park, Muskoka Beach Park, and Muskoka Bay Park next year.
Great, excellent, thank you. Anything else from your area, Andrew?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that covers it. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we move on, I just wanted to check and see if anybody had any questions. Go ahead, Penny.
Thank you. Through you, just back to Andrew. So you mentioned the barge. Is there going to be a problem because it's a heritage building, or is it considered a heritage building?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think there is heritage, it does have a heritage designation. That's why I'm saying it won't look fundamentally different than what it is now. But there's always option for subtle improvements to make it more accessible.
Any more questions, comments? Hearing none, I think we can move on. So our next deputation is with Melissa Halford. She's the Director of Developmental Services, and she is perhaps going to be talking to us about accessibility in Developmental Services Department. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Director Stacey just provided me the questions that were provided to him, so so just to give everybody the background here, so I'm the Director of Development Services. So what I oversee is building permits, like so the chief building official and that whole team. Bylaw services, so when you call to complain about your neighbor's dog or whatever it is, bylaw services, that's part of my team as well. Planning approvals, so zoning, consents, minor variances, those types of applications, so planning, and economic development. So the Gateway to the Holidays event, that's all being coordinated by my team as well. So those are the four divisions that I oversee. So my understanding is that you have some questions regarding the planning and building kind of components of that portfolio. So currently, when an application that is, so the changes to the Planning Act happened, well, there's been about 10 different changes over the last 5 years with various acts that this government has brought in, but one of which really limited the use of site plan control for development approvals. So to summarize, we are only able to require site plan approval when a residential building has 10 or more units, or for commercial or industrial buildings. So so those are the types of applications and engravers that are subject to site plan control. And the only things we can ask through site plan are things that are already in the Planning Act, or the in our zoning bylaw, or in our and eventually the building code. So anything above and beyond that, from terms of accessibility, we have no authority to ask for. And the chief building official, if it's not considered other applicable law, they're required to issue a building permit. So a lot of the details that I've seen, other municipalities, Huntsville is one of them, that their accessibility committee developed a checklist of items to be included in site plan applications. Some of those items are not actually like the height of the doorway going into the building. Those things aren't shown on site plans anyway. Site plan is more the bird's eye view of the property, the layout, where the driveway is, where your garbage bins are going to be, making sure your lights are dark sky friendly, you have enough parking spaces, accessible parking spaces, that there's enough of them, that kind of thing, and that they're the right size. But anything in terms of building design, building components, that's all dealt with at the building permit stage, so it has nothing to do with site plan approval. So I think sometimes people get a bit confused about the authority we have, and municipalities, although some people wish we had more, or some people wish we had less, but we don't have authority for everything. We're very structured in what we have authority to control. So I think that answers the questions. Yeah, so we can't control like furniture that people put in, or the color of the buildings, or even the design of the buildings anymore. That was taken out of site plan control abilities in the last changes with this government. So I'm happy to, I didn't prepare anything. Like I say, I just read this question here from my colleague, but happy to answer any questions that you have.
I have a question, but I first want to open it up to the committee. Any questions, thoughts right now? Melissa, you told us a lot. Thank you so much. I'm just processing it. There's a lot of information with respect to, there's a lot of information with respect to what we can't do. Could we focus on what is relevant to the committee as far as what we might be interested in knowing? So you did mention accessible parking spots. That falls under your purview. Are there other things that fall under your purview as well?
Well, if you want to know specifics about the building code, we can definitely, I'm not the expert on that. That's our chief building official. So I understood you wanted to speak with me today, so that's why you get me, but I'm not an expert on a lot of the things that happen in our department. That's why we have excellent staff on the team. I just get to lead them. So, yeah, our chief building official can give you all kinds of information about the Ontario Building Code and requirements of that. There are going to be changes to the building code coming that will take effect in January. So it may be worthwhile, once those changes come into place, having a summary. Or I believe he is going to be doing a series of information sessions, so you may want to attend those as well. That other people, members of the development community and that are going to be attending. So, and there's tons of great information out there. But in terms of like AODA compliance and that, we are not, that's not part of, the zoning bylaw has basically parking requirements in there, because that's what you see from bird's eye view, right? And the layout of entrances and all that are they have to be meet the building code requirement for fire reasons, right? So that they have the right turning radius and that kind of thing. So safety is built into all of those codes and accessibility as well.
Well, perhaps offline, you and Jonathan could talk about who from your department would be good to have come to this committee to just talk a little bit more about accessibility components of the work
Sure,
that they do.
and yeah, I would, if the more specific you can be, the better, just so that they can focus. If you have specific questions that you'd like answered, but if it was just an overview of accessibility requirements of the building code, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that. But yeah, if you can just be specific in what you'd like him to do, that would be great.
Thank you, appreciate that. Andrew?
Further to Director Halford, I thought it might be helpful that in my department, under the engineering side of the house, we deal with things like stormwater management, traffic studies, lot grading, photometrics, lighting and stuff like that. So not necessarily the AODA side of things. It's
Great, thank you, appreciate that. Ralph?
Yes, I do have a question. Actually, there was an application, and I don't want to get into the specifics about it, but it's a repurposing of a building on Main Street. And they're planning on adding some dwelling units. And currently, they only have 3 parking spots. And it's being put forward to, I guess, the Committee of Adjustment. And not one of those parking spots is accessible. And then they're planning a number of, I think they call them auxiliary dwelling units on the top floor. Now, this is where the building code and accessibility comes to a little bit of a, shall I say, a gray area. The building code doesn't stipulate that you have to have accessible stairways into a building. But it certainly seems like there's a greater movement towards having buildings having a certain percentage of units that are accessible. And I just thought, wondering how firm the committee would be in terms of approving such an application with only 3 spots and possibly 15 units on the second floor. And there's a commercial space on the lower level as well.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee member. That application hasn't been heard. It's planning council, so it's council that will make the decision on that application. And it's coming to council next week, so the application hasn't been heard yet. The staff report was just posted yesterday, so you can see staff's opinion on that application outlined in the staff report in that agenda package from the planning council meeting. But yeah, you're right. They've asked for a zoning amendment to reduce the number of parking spaces. When an applicant makes an application, we're duty bound to bring forward an application. We can't just tell them no, we're not the approval authority as staff, it's council that has to make the decision. So we processed the application and brought it forward for recommendation. There are a number of policies in, and this is all outlined in the staff report, but there are policies in our official plan that enable a reduction of parking in this part of town, the number of parking spaces, because of other parking abilities, and that perhaps there are people that live in this unit may not have a vehicle, maybe they have a bike or car share, that type of thing. So they have made the case that they'd like to have some consideration for reduced parking given the types of units that are being put in there, which are additional residential units above a commercial use. So I can't speak to whether council will approve it or not, but the applicant has submitted that application, and a very detailed, it's one of the longer reports that we've written for and by we, I mean the planning team. I did not write it. I did review it, though, and signed off on it. A lot of thought went into this one, I can tell you that, because there are a lot of different variables at play. The housing crisis is being top of mind. The type of unit that they're proposing, the location of it, the new transit system that we're really blessed to have in town that is accessible. So I hope everyone here on the committee has heard about it and is using it. It's fantastic. Frank, the bus driver, is very nice. So there's lots of different components at play. It's not just, yes, they have asked to remove their accessible parking spaces, yes.
Thank you for that.
Any other questions, comments, suggestions? Pardon me? Yes, of course.
Sorry, I just wanted to note, next week, the item will be on the planning agenda for planning council as a public meeting. So if anybody has any comments they want to be able to submit, that will be part of the official record when that application is being brought forward to council. You guys, as residents or even representatives of the committee, can always speak and provide commentary to it. Just wanted to throw that out there.
At the meeting or? Okay. Mhm. Okay. Or in advance?
Yeah, you can write in comments or, yeah, they just won't be summarized in the staff report because the due date is passed. But yeah, if you send in comments, then they'll be shared with all of council and in advance of the meeting so that they can take that into consideration when they make their decision.
Thank you. And when you say send in comments, you do that how?
Yeah, excellent point. Thank you. So you can submit comments to, the information is on our website, but you can submit comments via email to Adam Egger, and his contact information is on our website. He's the manager of planning, and he'll get it to the right person. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Anything else? All right. Thank you so much. You guys have been wonderful. We really, really appreciate your time and effort here. And we know you're really busy, so appreciate all the work that you guys are doing. Thank you. Look forward to seeing you in the new year. All right. We're going to move on to working group reports. First one is Advocacy and Education Working Group. And me and my partners in crime, Karen and Sandra, we've met to talk about the possible event that we might have in May of next year. I see that that's under new business, though, so I'd like to suggest that we forego any other discussions now and just leave the time for the new business discussion of the event. Is that okay with you guys? Okay. All right. The next working group is Accessibility Advisory Committee Collaboration Working Group. So Ralph and Judy, anything new to report or any suggestions for the future? Okay, thank you. So no report for there. And then under other reports, we have District Accessibility Advisory Committee update. I'm the representative on the district committee, And I just have two small things to say. The minutes from the October 9th joint meeting, where we had Gravenhurst, Huntsville, and Bracebridge Accessibility Committees also meet with the district. That was the event that Krista spoke at from Community Living South Muskoka. Those minutes are now available online if anybody wants to partake. And I do not yet have notice about a winter meeting for this group. So just wanted to let you know those two things. Any questions or comments? No? Okay. All right. And now, any unfinished business, Jonathan? Not in the agenda, so there's nothing there. All right, moving on. We're now into new business, and our first new business item is with the staff liaison, accessible accommodations report review. Jonathan?
Thank you, Barbara. So per council direction, that also came from this committee, I did some research and review of accessible features that can be installed or incorporated on public signage and plaques. The report has been given to you guys ahead of time for review. It's just draft at this point, but it will be submitted to council in December. So I hope you all had a chance to review it. It's pretty explanatory in terms of where we're looking to potentially go in terms of accessibility features on our signage and plaques. If there's any feedback you'd like to provide in terms of the information presented, I reviewed 4 items or potential features to be incorporated. As noted, Braille within the reports was seen as the historical and go-to feature for accessibility. It's now being slanted towards more high-tech and advanced items that all users, regardless of whether they are literate with Braille or not, will be able to actually tap into. And then further on, suggesting with incorporations of QR codes, which are much more easily installed and incorporated within actual signage, rather than having to create any sort of materials that would be needed for Braille.
Just for those who may not know what a QR code is.
Oh, quick response code. So for those who have never seen one, I'm pretty sure I think everybody has. It's a standard block of dots inside of it. You scan it with your phone. It takes you automatically to a website. And whatever is contained on that website is accessible to the person who is scanning on their phone. It could be anything being tied to on that website. It could be audio file. It could be further information on a web page. Anything that you would potentially incorporate on that site. But it's instantly accessible by the person who scans it from their phone. So further on, tactile mapping is another feature I was looking at. Not necessarily for plaques, but at least for public signage when it comes to interior facilities for municipal government offices. Thinking more towards the public accessible ones like Town Hall. I think there was one that I was able to find in the city of Ottawa has a tactile map at the front of its building where they can actually, blind users would be able to feel and get a sense of their surroundings when they are entering the facility. That's something that we potentially considered. And finally, the other one was specialized apps. So as I mentioned before, in terms of the high-tech availability of technology for the visually impaired community, there is lots out there. It's quite extensive in terms of the support and the availability of this technology. So tapping into that probably would be a worthwhile venture. What to the extent we would be required to actually be able to meet the requirements, or if there are any, for using or tapping into those apps, I haven't really delved too deeply into it, with the exception of one that requires us to have a LiDAR scan of our buildings in case we ever want to tap into that particular technology. But the sky's the limit in terms of what we would like to be able to either advertise or support and promote on our website. But the majority of these apps, navigation in the exterior or even in some interior places is supported within the app. So not much is required in terms of any organization or company in order to guide the individual through the particular facility or building. Tapping into all this would be a recommendation that's further to my research would be the committee tapping into further reviews of these items, whether it be the Braille, tactile mapping, QR codes, and the specialized apps. Because next year we'll be reviewing and revitalizing our multi-year accessibility plan. Pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. And part of those, that document is also our accessible customer service policy and the IASR policy, which speaks to how the town meets accessible needs of the residents and the public. So having all those documents reviewed to be able to see what aspects we would like to incorporate in our public signage, if everything can be tackled together in one item to review for next year, or a project for next year, I think that'd be a great way to tackle everything. So I'll leave it there. I hope everyone had a good chance to review. There's a bunch of also hyperlinks that take you to those information on those technology and websites. So I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any. But the end goal, hopefully, with this is that within the report, there is a recommendation that you guys support the recommendations of the report, so I can bring it forward to council for their review, and if they are acceptable of the recommendations, then the first item of business for next year would be to tackle the project that's outlined within the recommendation.
Okay, let's open that up to questions, comments, suggestions. So I don't normally do this, but I'm going to read the recommendation, the second recommendation, because it applies to us within this report, is that the Advisory Committee be directed to review the town's multi-year accessibility plan, the Accessible Customer Services Policy, and the Integrated Accessibility Standards Policy as part of our work for 2025. So that's what Jonathan said. And consider the inclusion of these additional accessible features in these documents themselves. So whether it's QR codes, tactile mapping, whatever is appropriate per the document, et cetera. So I thought that was very interesting, that it provides an opportunity for us as a committee to engage with some of the policies and policies that the town has, so that we could just do a check through and make sure that things look reasonable from our training and perspective and our terms of reference. So I thought that was pretty good. I like the recommendation that's written in the report for our recommendation. The draft one is that the Accessibility Advisory Committee supports the recommendations of the accessible features for public signage and plaques report. So we're just saying that we like what's written here. We're not necessarily saying thou shalt do, right? Okay.
Sorry to say, though, that the recommendations suggesting is that at the beginning of the report where the committee would commit to reviewing those documents for those accessibility features, that's what you'd be essentially endorsing and supporting.
Okay, that's fine. One small thing, could we make sure that the name of the committee is correctly stated? It is the Accessibility Advisory Committee, right? As opposed to the Accessible Advisory Committee? It's minor, but,
Typo.
you know, it's our name.
It's a draft.
It's a draft, it's our name. So any comments or questions so far from anyone? Have you guys done that before in the past, those of you who have been here for a long time? Have you gone through the town's policies that pertain to our work? I'm seeing a yes. Yeah, okay. Okay, great, excellent. And then there was something else. Okay. Well, it sounds like a great opportunity for us to get our feet wet, so to speak, in some of these policies, as well as start to help to craft the next multi-year accessibility plan, right? So I see this as a win-win for our committee, getting in there and getting our feet wet. What do you guys think?
Barb,
Yes,
I think it's a
Karen.
huge step for this committee.
and
that
a
we
good,
haven't had.
a good huge step?
Yes.
Okay, a good huge step. All right, great, thank you. Sandra, you too? Okay, all right. You guys are good? I'm seeing lots of nodding and stuff. All right.
Thankful for the support. Now, if we can actually have the motion on the screen to be able to pass, and we'll incorporate that within the report officially.
Great. So the motion needs a moved by and a second by. Can I have a moved by Ralph? Thank you. Second by Karen? Thank you. So Ralph is moved and Karen is second. Be it resolved that town staff review the feasibility and administration of various accessibility accommodations. No, it's not.
That's not the one.
No, it's this one. That's okay, it's that one. Just going to be a few minutes or a minute. Thank you so much, Bessie.
While we're waiting, Madam Chair, I just wonder if I might, through you, might just bring this up regarding the fact that the next person that we might like to have come talk to us is, who is it that Michelle, or that Melissa, Director Holford, is suggesting that we speak to regarding building codes and things like that? Is that Andy?
That would be Andy Jones.
Yeah.
My suggestion, though, would be if we could actually put forward any questions to him via email.
Absolutely.
And he could always provide a response, and I can forward it off to the
Yeah,
committee
that's what
without necessarily having to come in physically.
No, yeah, that's what I'm suggesting, so that they realize it's Andy Jones who that we're
Oh,
going to be asking the questions to. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. What do you think? Yay. Yep. Okay, that's all right. So we have a new motion up there, so I'd like you to read it for a second before we ask for a move by and second by. We can still do Ralph and Karen if you want, but I just want to check and make sure that you're still okay with it. Ralph is a yes, so Ralph is moved by. Karen? Sure. Karen is second. Thank you. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee supports the recommendations of the accessible features for public signage and plaques report. All those in favor? All right, we're good. It carries. Thank you so much, Jonathan. This is excellent work. It's wonderful to see your expertise come through in this report. I know that you are an expert, but it's really came through very strongly here. Thank you. Okay. All right, now I need to flip back to the agenda. We have new business. Next is the AAC event discussion, staff liaison. And I'd like to welcome Kelly Cleland here. She is our guest from Community Living South Muskoka. Thank you so much for being here, Kelly. Just for a few minutes, could you tell us what your title is and your role at Community Living? Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. My name's Kelly Cleland. I work for Community Living South Muskoka. I have been with the agency for 15 years, in the sector for almost 20 years. I'm manager of services and supports for the agency. I oversee programs like our supported community-based employment program, our community participations programs, our passport program. So everything to do with people we support interacting or connecting to the community or being true members of the community, of their community. I also oversee our events and marketing and communication. So I've been a part of many, many, many events through the agency, building awareness of our agency, spreading, trying to fundraise, highlight a lot of the skills and abilities that the people we support have, showcasing the meaningful work that they do through their community employment positions. Currently have 40 people under our employment umbrella who are out working for Mainstream, working through small businesses, through different, like McDonald's, Muskoka Party Rentals, different companies around Muskoka, which is a huge success. And I find that our community is very welcoming, and I just look forward to being a part of this committee and trying to strengthen that as well. So,
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kelly. Appreciate it. Jonathan?
So just wanted to provide, I guess, an update as well as some information for the committee so you're well aware of what would be the requirements for hosting this event. So since the direction was given from council for staff to review and, I guess, put forward the actual event, staff have come together to actually review their capabilities, but also emphasize the importance of the committee's work to be able to facilitate and conduct the event. So what I've done since the recommendation from council is put forward a itinerary list of task lists that the committee would be expected to conduct, and for the majority of it would be your responsibility, from securing vendors to setting up the events to securing food if any is going to be served. And I actually have that list, if you wouldn't mind putting that up as a demonstration or to show. And I worked with the recreation team to determine the appropriate responsibilities for each one. Oh yeah, I'll take that. Thank you. So, as you can see, the majority of the responsibility falls on the Accessibility Committee to tackle each individual task. So, because mentioned before by certain members that there would be it's not that hard to actually do or conduct an event. And I just wanted to demonstrate that that's not the case. There's a lot involved, and there would be a lot of requirements. And just to also emphasize, if we were to conduct an event to this size, everybody would have to be on top or on board. So we can't commit to this event if it's one person or two people. All 7 of us would have to be tapped into for the responsibility, or 5. So with that said, I'm not trying to scare anybody, but I'm just trying to throw some reality that if we're looking to support this event for May, then we'll have to be at least boots on the ground starting from our meeting in January. You don't have to make a determination now whether we want to commit to it or yet. But at least think about over the holiday season to whether you guys have the time, abilities, and the commitment to be able to meet all the requirements and there could be more to this within a 4-month time frame. And I'll open that up to discussion.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm wondering, after we had that district meeting, would it be something that you would consider getting in touch with the district representatives if they would be willing to help us out with this?
Interesting idea.
Because there were women, and I can't remember the woman's name, who was quite excited by what
Diane.
you were saying. And she seemed quite, I could see her being somebody who would pull a group together to help us out.
Right.
And the other question I have, if I may, what do you mean by vendors? Do you mean vendors who supply the equipment, or I don't know what you mean by vendors?
So depending on what kind of event you would have, you could have booths set up for individuals from organizations, either providing information to the public, like CNIB, for example,
Okay.
or other organizations that can provide resources to individuals there. And if the CNIB, for example, has devices where they can emulate or simulate a person blind to the individual, which is what you're expecting or hoping to do, then we could secure that. So finding out those vendors, bringing them in, registering them, would be a responsibility that will fall on an individual here.
Sorry, may I do a follow-up? So like vendors like physiotherapists, occupational therapists, doctors, nurses, like I'm just trying to think of,
If you like to go that far, sure, yes.
I mean, you want to make it as interesting as possible for the public
Perhaps,
when they come in. And
perhaps
maybe
Kelly has some
Kelly's got- yeah.
suggestions, what a vendor might be.
Absolutely, thank you. We work with a lot of different agencies, and I've gone to many conferences where they have a similar setup where we have different vendors, like I'm thinking Heather's Home Health Care, Medicare, CNIB would be a wonderful one, and I'd be happy to help source through those. Those are just the ones coming to mind, but absolutely.
Okay. Karen?
Years ago, we went and we had a table at the home show. And we were, you know.
Was that my time?
No. No, before your time. We've been around. Yeah, so, and that worked out really well.
So we were part of a bigger event that was already planned, and
That's right.
we were one of the vendors, if you will.
And maybe that's the route to go initially. I can see there's so much work that needs to be done that maybe we should be looking at something 2026 to do it right.
A big event for us in 2026. Okay. Well, let's talk about, I'm sorry. Yes, Sandra, please.
Thank you, Barb. As we talked about, why don't we start small? I think that what happens sometimes with events is everybody's gung-ho, and they see this large event happening, and it's going to be great. But then it's kind of, lots starts to happen, falls through the cracks, and then it's not successful. So my suggestion would be, let's do something small, like the home show. I'm not saying the home show, but necessarily. But if there was something else that we could tag on to, maybe that would be the way to go first.
Okay,
Because it's been a while since we've done any of this stuff.
okay. Kelly?
When you and I first met, we talked about maybe partnering with the chamber and doing a chamber after-hours event, and it would be a smaller scale,
yes.
just to build awareness for now, and then we could look at doing a
Something,
bigger
a larger venue
the
down
following
road,
year.
and see how successful we are. Let's
Exactly.
see how successful we are before we dive into something larger.
Okay, so I see two things on the table, one that we've been talking about and one that's in my head. So one that we've been talking about, let me get a consensus from folks. Are you okay if we start small in 2025 and we go bigger in 2026? That's our hope and dream, yeah? Okay, I'm seeing all nods here. Okay, so let's focus on that then. We'll go small in 2025. And then the other thing that's in my head, and I've talked to Kelly, Sandra, and Karen, we've all talked about this. And maybe, Kelly, if you could pick this up a bit. So our original thought was to do an event where we would, it would be part of allowing people to experience what it's like to have certain disabilities. What we've been focusing on, though, with discussions with Kelly and also with the others, is maybe we need to change that perspective and instead do something like what I see on Gravenhurst's accessibility website, which is focused not on the differences of people with disabilities, okay, but the talent of the individual. So I'd like to see if maybe Kelly can pick that up a little bit, and my other partners in crime as well. And anyone else, please. So again, changing the perspective. It's not about the disability, it's about the talents of the person.
Absolutely. I think there's two pieces to that. The first one would be education. We, as an agency, receive deafblind intervener funding, and part of that is really intense training where the staff will wear a device where they're unable to hear and unable to see, and then they have a partner who will help them maneuver what life would be through that, through the lens of someone who is deaf and blind. But that is a very direct support model to help teach the staff on what it would be like to walk in somebody's shoes. So if that's the purpose we're going, I think that obviously we can look at that. But I think celebrating successes, and I think Gravenhurst has so much to succeed, even in preparation for this meeting. I talked to a lot of our staff who are out supporting in the community, and even the success stories and the small changes that the town has made over the years that they have seen, and that is making their work lives easier and lives easier for the people we support has been huge. So I think even just celebrating and working with some of the people, tell their stories of, what is it like working in Gravenhurst with a disability, and what they bring to the community, and what that brings to the employer, and then maybe highlighting some of the businesses who have made improvements. So, because there is a lot to.
Excellent. So
Lots to
your
celebrate.
your first description about the training, that was more for people who were, it was like customer service training,
Absolutely.
right? So
yeah.
what's it like not to hear, yeah.
Yeah, and that did come up in some of my conversations with staff. It's simple things like, yes, a lot of the businesses have the accessibility buttons to enter a building, but they're not always turned on.
Oh,
So it's great, but if it's not on, it's very difficult for people to get in. So even building awareness on those small points that, flicking that switch makes a huge impact on somebody's day and somebody's life, so.
very good. So comments? Judy, Ralph, what are your thoughts on us switching to something more about celebrating?
There's no harm in doing that.
It's a
Absolutely.
good comment.
Yeah. We have not considered having, in the past, someone actually with a disability sitting at a booth and explaining their
Can you hit your button again? Just
I
once and
forgot.
then, yeah, no worries. We all do.
I used to be a pilot, and yeah. Private pilot. Old habits die hard.
There you go.
Anyways, yeah, you could always have, someone who is willing to give their testimony about how it is to be in Gravenhurst with a disability.
Thank you.
Can have a big impact
Right.
on people.
Thank you. And Kelly, I liked your description about how people talk about the things that Gravenhurst has done that are improving their lives, and also things that they could do a little bit better. Yeah, that's wonderful. Judy, anything to add?
Not really.
Yeah. Thank you. You're on.
Not really. Right now, that's what I try to explain to different people, that assume because my disabilities are not visual, that they don't understand.
Right.
And it is frustrating sometimes, so.
Sure.
But I'm very capable of what I do.
You own your own business, right?
Well, my husband does. I'm just a side thought.
Oh, no, I'm putting you on the contract right now.
Well,
So you'll be our guinea pig for sitting and explaining what you're going through.
I could, but ever since a year ago, I'm finding more issues that I'm working out, so it's, yes.
Okay.
And I actually fell a couple weeks ago at the Centennial Center.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
So, plus I was using my cane and the handrail on a ramp. Yes. The strips they put down.
You tripped
caught
over
me-
them?
No, I caught on it. It held my shoe.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
So there's issues out there, and it's like, okay, what can we do to help the issues?
Okay.
So it's getting different perspectives out there.
Absolutely. Different perspectives are so important.
Yes,
So important.
yes,
Thank you.
okay.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Sandra? Yeah.
I think Kelly's idea to hook up with the BIA would be excellent,
The chamber?
or the chamber.
Yeah.
Yeah, whichever works. Only because they're prominent here. So if we were to have a venue and they were part of us, that might attract more people. That's all I'm thinking.
Great, excellent. I think one of the things Kelly and I talked about is you can set up the best event possible, but if nobody comes, then, yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit? How you try to mitigate by pairing up with others to do an event?
Yeah, absolutely. Just to give an example, in the spring, through my employment, we're trying to bridge the gap in supports from youth who are aging out of high school into the adult world, and ensure that they're connecting to services. So we're partnering our employment program with our youth program, and part of that is connecting with the high school. So this past spring, we planned an event. We had a panel of employers, employees, teachers through the high school, through the PALS program, to build awareness around hiring people with a disability, as well as through co-ops. So we were trying to pair both needs. And we planned it in June, which really worked for the students because then they were looking for employment, but didn't work for the employers. So we had to postpone, and we're looking at doing it holding the event this February, March. But we decided at that point to connect with the chamber. So we connected with Bracebridge, Gravenhurst, and Muskoka Lakes Chamber, and they're all on board. And we're going to build on the social capital of everyone and really target a time that is desirable for those business owners to be able to free up their time, which is valuable, as well as look towards what our needs are. So I think it just really makes a big impact when you can have all the right people in place, but if you don't have anyone there to listen to your cause, it's not going to be successful. So
Excellent, thank you. Any other thoughts? Okay. Is there anything else we need to do with respect to this discussion, Jonathan, that I'm not thinking about?
I guess your homework would be, if you'd like to do some more review or thoughts on the events for next year, we can always come back and have when we're discussing our work plan, we can have a specific item meant for the event, and then
Okay.
we can assign individuals for a working group.
Okay.
Or if you'd like the entire committee to be involved, we don't have to have a working group, and just everyone works on something individually.
Okay, those are great ideas. I like the idea of having some events that are already planned that we go to. I'm going to say it again, I'm a broken record. Could we have the wheel, please, at some point? Spin the wheel.
It is on the docket to be purchased. However, by all means, if you find a wheel that you are passionate to have, we will easily reimburse you by giving you a check.
In other words, you want it off my discussion. Thank you, Jonathan, appreciate that. All right, well, I think if we can all think about.
Barbara, sorry.
Go ahead, Penny.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Through you. Okay, so because I'm on the chamber board, and the chamber is having some problems in Gravenhurst with getting board members. So I think we need to not just have an after hours, but have another event as well that, as, us and another business or something to draw more people, because I been to all the after hours, and they're getting smaller and smaller.
Aw,
So when we say you need to have the people to make an impact, it's making me nervous about after hours because our membership is way down and we're losing our chair. So,
good perspective.
so we need to think about maybe not just the chamber, but if there's something else. And our BIA is non-existent right now, so that's unfortunate.
Okay. So are there other groups in town that would be good for us to pair with? Karen?
What about the Rotary
The Rotary.
or? Kiwanis?
Can't hear you, ladies.
We don't have one.
But Probus or Rotary.
Probus, Rotary.
Lions is very small, so I don't think we would get much help. I don't know.
Through you again, Madam Chair, this might be good for the chamber as well, if we've paired it up with the chamber and Rotary, or the chamber and Probus. Because there might be then people who might come from those organizations that might help out the chamber. I mean, I'm putting my chamber hat on as well.
That's great.
But, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out because I think we do need another organization involved in there. Thank you.
Thank you, that's perfect. Any other organizations or thoughts?
What about the senior center?
The Senior Center, sure, absolutely. Okay, perfect. Judy?
There's also 2 women's, what are they called? Women institutes.
Ah,
There's Severn and there's Sparrow Lake.
perfect.
So if we can reach out to every group and just see what takes and all that.
Perfect, excellent. The more the merrier.
Who's
Penny.
first?
Oh, I'm sorry, who's first?
Go.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair.
Thanks, Karen.
Okay, now I'm getting quite excited about this because all these ideas are starting to come to me.
Good.
Because the senior center would be a great place because of their auditorium
Oh,
I mean, I was thinking after hours, you see normally go to a business.
Right.
And there's not many businesses that could accommodate what we're thinking of doing. But the senior center with their auditorium would be a fantastic venue
excellent.
for us and whoever else we ask, the senior center plus Probus or plus
Yeah,
Rotary. That'd be a great
that'd be
venue
super.
for it, yeah.
Okay, Karen?
I was thinking churches, because you've got children with disabilities in the church. No, but I'm thinking of the Baptist and how, you know,
Okay, Kelly?
The district also just received, or didn't just receive, they're running caregiver support groups through, and they've partnered with Alzheimer's and all different kinds of community connectors. So it might be good to partner with that group as well with the district. 'Cause I know
Excellent.
they've had really good turnouts in their information session, and it's kind of the same thing where you have a dinner and then their information, exactly, so.
And people are there for dinner, so they sit and listen.
Hear that, Jonathan? We're doing dinner now. Dinner theater, there you go. That's perfect, wonderful, thank you. Those are great ideas, you guys. Excellent, excellent. All right, well, I'd like to make sure that we have this event on our discussion for our next meeting in January so that we can pull through some ideas. So please feel free to keep having some ideas about this, bring it forward in our January meeting. I'll go through and summarize the notes of what we've said today so that we have some ideas of what we've already talked about and said, and then we can go from there as far as the big event idea.
Not to put a break on that.
Of course not. But you will.
but I will. The first item of business for next year would be your 2025 work plan. So since your work plan is approved by council, you will have to wait probably until February in order to do some serious work or discussion, at least within the committee meetings.
Except the event itself was already approved by the council, was it not?
We're changing it significantly from when it was initially directed. So we have to go back to council and say, we're going to probably think about doing this in next year, in 2026.
2026.
Yeah, so this is a new direction, new
All right.
strategy or new direction that you guys will be going down. So it has to
All right.
get their approval.
All right, thank you. Okay, okay. All right, what do you guys think? We're good? So for our work plan discussion in January, come with ideas. Do we still have the same 2 work groups? Do we need something different? With our work plan, what do we want to do for 2025? We want to get connected with events that are already happening and have booths. What are we going to do with that? Who's going to spin the wheel? All those fun things. So think about that. Think about any other, think about all the events out there. How are we going to be connected to those events? How often should we, what are we going to be doing when we're there at the events? What props do we need to do that? Who's going to be there to help us with it and all that stuff? All right, anything else? Anybody? Judy?
One thing is that list to plan,
The traumatizing list?
right. Could we get a copy emailed to us? And that way it will, like, it's just something to look at all the time and just see if we need to add or eliminate something.
That's a good idea. Jonathan?
What I can do is I can make it into a Google Sheet so everybody can have access to it and add to it and edit it as they're at their leisure.
Nice.
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you.
That would be great. Okay. Anything else with respect to our event discussion and thoughts about our 2025 work plan? They just kind of creeped in there, came together. All right. Okay, let's move on. Next, we have the appointment of affiliate member, which is related to the staff liaison. Do you want to take it from there?
I just put my title here, but it's just a kickoff. But just to make it formal in terms of bringing in Kelly, we do need a motion to appoint her, or at least, sorry, her organization, to have her come in as an affiliate and stay within her terms of reference. So if you don't mind putting up the resolution.
And would you describe why Kelly's name's not there as a,
So for the sake of the terms of reference, we're appointing an individual representative from Community Living South Muskoka. So in the event that Kelly is not able to attend, another representative would be able to attend in her place. So it won't be specifically her coming.
and does that mean a representative from Community Living South Muskoka? It could be an employee, it could be a client, whatever a representative means?
I would stick to representative being an employee.
Okay, an employee of the organization.
Yep.
Is that okay with you, Kelly? Okay. All right. So may I read the recommendation then?
Please do.
All right. So we need a moved by and second by for this recommendation. I have Penny and Sandra. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys are just a little bit behind. Appreciate that. Okay, so Sandra, you want to give it up you have to choose now who's your favorite. All right, so we'll do Penny and Sandra. Be it resolved that the Accessibility Advisory Committee's terms of reference be amended to include one representative from Community Living South Muskoka. All in favor? Okay, it carries. Thank you. And correspondence, the AODA toolbox for October. There's a link to it on our agendas. Anybody have any comments? Jonathan?
Just to throw it in there, embedded within the update from the AODA, there is a mention of the customer service standards under the AODA being reviewed
Nice.
by a standards development committee. And they put forward 11 recommendations that vary in terms of the like what changes they would make within the IASR. It's open to, available to the public to be able to review and provide feedback. So you yourselves as committee members can review the recommendations. And public consultation is open until January 9th, so
Oh, great.
by all means.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anybody with regards to this? So I know I know there's a lot of information we have to do with each agenda. Really appreciate all the time and effort that you are able to put into it. We're all here as a team to support each other, so sometimes some of us can do things and sometimes some of us can't, and that's okay, because that's why we have committee meetings, meeting of the minds, we come together and talk and get some work done for accessibility for Gravenhurst. So is there anything else with respect to the AODA toolbox? Nope. Okay, hearing nothing, we are in adjournment. So I do need a mover and seconder. Okay. May I have a mover? Karen, a seconder? Ralph, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. So this meeting is